Picture a huge empire that stretched across whole continents. All at once, its shining cities, filled with amazing buildings, were gone. It was not defeated by armies, and it did not fade away over time. Instead, a deliberate act of erasing took place, as it was buried under thick mud that could swallow up entire societies. The only clues left behind by the world-changing disaster were strange maps and underwater ruins. Such a complete disappearance must have been caused by a powerful force, but what was it? There is also a feeling that secrets are hidden right under our feet, which, if found, could completely change our understanding of the past. The thrilling mystery of Tartaria is what we are exploring, a name that was once all over old maps before being completely removed, as if it was never real at all. Yet, buried evidence keeps coming to the surface. For more than 300 years, from the 1500s to the 1800s, a vast kingdom called Tartaria was shown on maps by cartographers all over Europe. These mapmakers, from places like France, Holland, and Germany, all showed a huge domain that reached from the Caspian Sea to the Pacific Ocean, covering Siberia, Central Asia, and more. Divisions like independent Tartary, Chinese Tartary, and Russian Tartary were not just one territory, but were also shown on these maps, which points to a complex empire having many areas under its control. The fact that they are all so similar is amazing. Why would mapmakers from different countries that were rivals all agree on these kinds of details? It would be different if it were just a made-up story or a name for wandering tribes. But then, by the 1800s, Tartaria suddenly disappears from all atlases. It is ignored by modern schoolbooks, which call it a general name for the lands where the Tartars, who were horse-riding people of Mongol and Turkic heritage, lived. That reason, however, falls apart when you look at it closely. Why were there exact borders if it was just a name for unknown areas? Why did it vanish so suddenly and completely, as if a worldwide order had been given for its removal? Some theorists suggest a secret plan was involved. It's thought that powerful groups, maybe empires like Russia that were growing into Siberia, gave the lands new names. By doing this, they took over Tartaria's history to hide something much more important. At the center of this vanishing is the Great Mud Flood, a theoretical worldwide disaster in the 1800s. It is believed this event did not cover the world with water, but instead with soft, wet earth, burying cities many feet deep in mud and broken pieces. Think of big cities that were busy one day and then completely silent the next. They were covered by a flow of mud that became as hard as concrete, which kept the buildings underneath safe, while new construction was done on top of the ruins. Mainstream historians say this was just a slow sinking caused by city growth, like paving over old roads or raising streets to improve cleanliness. But supporters of the theory say it was a single, terrible event. It might have been set off by earthquakes, blasts of plasma from the sky, or even planned disasters meant to get rid of proof of a highly developed society. Consider the city of Seattle. Whole blocks of buildings can be seen underneath the modern streets in its famous underground tour. What were once their main floors are now basements. You can see windows at the level of the sidewalk, looking up like reminders of a forgotten time. Fires and plumbing problems in the late 1800s are what official stories blame for the raised roads. But why is everything buried at the same depth? Why does the stonework and design of these underground levels show a skill that was supposedly not possible at that time? When construction workers find these things during digging, they see very careful work and beautiful building fronts that seem to belong to a civilization that was there before, not to simple pioneer buildings. This same pattern is found in New York City, where digging for the subway has uncovered detailed buildings far underground. There are curved ceilings and fine brickwork that do not match the city's colonial past, but instead fit a single, worldwide style. America is not the only place this happens. After the Great Fire of 1871, the streets in Chicago were raised. However, some theorists say that buried parts of the city show a mud flood happened even before the fire. Similar sinking buildings can be seen in cities across Europe, like Paris and London. First floors have been turned into basements, and all of this happened around the same time that Tartaria was erased from maps. What if Tartaria's secrets were hidden by this mud flood, which was used as a weapon in a huge reset? The empire's maps suggest it had advanced knowledge, free energy, and peaceful societies that were a threat to the new powers that were rising. Those in power made sure we forgot our real history by burying the proof, making us believe we lived in a less advanced time. This connects in a strange way to the theories of Graham Hancock in Ancient Apocalypse. In the show, he finds proof of a lost Ice Age civilization that was destroyed by disasters about 12,000 years ago. Hancock looks at places like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which has huge T-shaped pillars that were carved 11,000 years before the pyramids. This suggests that hunter-gatherers could not have built them by themselves. He thinks a comet hitting the Earth caused worldwide floods. This melted ice sheets and changed the planet, much like the mud flood, where soil turned to liquid from strong shaking, swallowing buildings whole. In episodes like Once There Was a Flood, Hancock studies the scars on the land. He looks at huge fields of boulders in North America and worn-down landscapes in the Amazon, which all point to giant floods that wiped out advanced societies. The fate of Tartaria is similar to this, maybe as a more recent event in the 1800s, where plasma events or earthquake waves brought about similar destruction. Hancock gets a lot of criticism and is called a creator of fake history for questioning the idea that civilization began in Sumer 5,000 years ago. But his proof, like old maps such as the Piri Reis map that shows Antarctica without ice long before it was known to be explored, is similar to how consistent the maps of Tartaria were. Hancock is accused of making things more dramatic by his critics, but his fans believe information is being hidden. Why would anyone try to silence ideas that question what is taught in schools? The Netflix series caused arguments, with archaeologists calling it dangerous. Still, people connect with it because, like the story of Tartaria, it makes you ask, what if history is a lie? It suggests our progress is actually a step down from amazing achievements that have been forgotten. The idea of a mud flood is becoming more popular online, where groups of people study photos of buried windows in Salt Lake City or the underground rooms in Edinburgh. These are not just random. They have similar styles, like classical columns and fancy domes, that point to a Tartarian influence all over the world. Why do Russian Tartary maps match up with strange events in Siberia, like the Tunguska event of 1908? That was a huge explosion that some theorists connect to leftover Tartarian technology or the aftermath of the flood. In Hancock's Sirius Rising episode, he looks at the giant stone temples of Malta, which are older than Stonehenge. They have special sound qualities that hint at technology based on sound, which is similar to Tartaria's theorized sound chambers. If people who survived the Ice Age started later cultures, could Tartaria have been one of them? Was its mud flood a smaller apocalypse, like a repeat of the younger Dryas comet impact? The questions keep adding up, as Hancock describes. Who planned the redrawing of maps to hide Tartaria? Was the mud flood a natural event, or was it made worse by groups who were afraid of free energy returning? Hancock's work points to a pattern of things being erased. Doggerland is now under the North Sea. Rock art in the Sahara shows green landscapes that are now desert. Tartaria is another piece of this puzzle. It was an empire that was buried, and its knowledge was hidden to keep us from knowing the truth. As we look at all these clues, the mystery becomes even deeper. Buildings all over the world hint at a shared past. Maps cannot be easily dismissed, and disasters like the mud flood strongly suggest a deliberate act of forgetting. What truths are just waiting for someone brave enough to find them? In a similar way, there are connections to many other mysteries. Think about the Bermuda Triangle, an area where ships and planes vanish without a sign. Could it be a leftover Tartarian portal? Perhaps unstable energy fields from lost technology are warping reality. Theorists connect it to old maps that show strange seas. These might have been gateways that Tartarians used for travel, which are now broken after the flood. Crop circles, which are complex designs that appear in fields, could be messages from the descendants of Tartarians or reminders of their knowledge of shapes. Star forts, with their designs pressed into the earth, might be warnings or plans for a new beginning. The hiding of free energy is also connected. Nikola Tesla's ideas for wireless power were supposedly based on ancient writings. They might have come from Tartarian crystals that collected energy from the air. This knowledge was hidden by businessmen like Edison so they could control resources. Theories about ancient aliens make this idea even bigger, suggesting that beings from other planets helped Tartaria, just as Hancock hints at star knowledge in the alignments at Göbekli Tepe. The Illuminati, a secret group of powerful people, are said to be the ones guarding these secrets. They use resets to stay in charge. Giants are also a big part of the story. Newspaper articles from the 1800s tell of 9-foot-tall skeletons being found in American mounds. These bones were quickly taken away by the Smithsonian. The Nephilim from the Bible and the Titans from Greek myths could be memories of Tartarian builders, whose huge doors and stairs were made for much larger people. Atlantis and Mu are connected as well. Plato's story of a sunken island and Edgar Case's visions of Mu in the Pacific Ocean could be about civilizations that came before Tartaria. Their technology was passed down and then buried in mud. Hancock's findings of underwater ruins near Japan or Cuba support this, suggesting that destructions happen in cycles. The framework of 5 eras puts things into context. It suggests golden ages of spiritual skill gave way to Tartaria's 4th era of towers and airships. This era was brought down by outsiders, leading to our current plastic 5th era of disposable things. Why was it all erased? The reason is power. A society that has unlimited energy is a threat to oil company owners. Peaceful cultures are hard to divide and control, so maps were changed, floods were created, history was cleaned up, but pieces of it still exist. Star forts direct energy. Buried churches vibrate with certain frequencies. If you dig deeper, more questions come up. Are we the children of those who survived? Does our DNA hold the secrets to getting back our lost knowledge? As the night gets darker, let these mysteries calm your mind. What if finding the truth about Tartaria changes what it means to be human? Go to sleep with these quiet stories of the past. Have you ever been in the presence of a large, old building, looking up at doorways that reach 15 feet in height? Or have you seen staircases with steps so large they make you stretch in a way that feels strange? Did you ever wonder if these places were built not for regular people like us, but for beings who were much, much taller? The buildings some people say are from the Tartarian culture are full of these strange features. They draw us into a world where it's hard to tell the difference between stories and a hidden truth, making us ask if giants really did live on Earth once, building civilizations with hands that could hold boulders like they were small stones. Let's take a walk through these amazing buildings, beginning with the beautiful state capitals and opera houses found across America and Europe. Their designs show a level of skill and size that seems impossible for the tools their supposed builders had. Think about the Iowa State Capitol, with its high domes and detailed stonework that seems to vibrate with a strange, perfect balance. Theorists believe these are leftovers from Tartaria's best years. During that time, buildings were not just for shelter, but were part of a peaceful way of life, using shapes that were in tune with the planet's own energies. The columns stand like old guards, covered in details that stoneworkers today have a hard time copying, even with our modern tools. What secret knowledge made such amazing work possible? Could it have been control over sound waves, as some people think? Perhaps certain sounds lifted huge stones into the air, fighting gravity in ways we can barely imagine. Looking more closely, the sizes of things tell their own story. In the huge palaces of St. Petersburg or the fancy halls of San Francisco that were rebuilt after the 1906 earthquake, you can see clues of inhabitants who were much taller than the average person. The ceilings are 3 times higher than they need to be, and old photos show furniture like chairs with unusually high seats and tables that make everything else look small. Old records from the 1800s are full of stories about very large skeletons being found during digging and building projects all across America. These were bones of people who were 7 to 9 feet tall, with strong bodies that suggest they were a different kind of race. Newspapers from that time, like those saved in the Smithsonian's early files, wrote about these discoveries often. But then the skeletons would disappear, locked away in private collections or simply destroyed. Why was this kept secret? Could it be that admitting these giants were real would change our story of evolution? It would make us face a past where humans lived alongside giant relatives. Myths from all over the world fit perfectly into this idea, connecting stories from different cultures. Greek stories tell of titans, giant beings who fought with the gods and shaped the universe before they were defeated. The Bible talks about the Nephilim, who were the children of divine beings and humans. These giants lived before the Great Flood, a disaster that is a lot like the mud flood we talked about earlier. Maybe it was a way to get rid of their power. Norse stories tell of giant warriors. At the same time, Native American spoken histories from all over the continents tell of meetings with red-haired giants who lived in cities made of mounds. Their graves have been found with long skulls and huge tools. These are not just separate fairy tales. They all come together to create a worldwide story that suggests real memories of meetings with a Tartarian race of giants. These giants were the builders of an empire that went from Eastern Europe all the way to the Americas. Think about what that means. If these giants built Tartaria's structures, their technology must have been incredible, and it connects to the ancient aliens idea. Some theorists think that help came from beings from other planets. These visitors from the stars shared knowledge of using sound to lift things, using sound waves to control matter at a tiny level. Modern experiments, like using ultrasonic waves to lift small things, give us a small idea of what this could do. But if it was done on a much larger scale, it could be the reason why huge stone structures were built all over the world. From the pyramids in Egypt to Sacsayhuaman in Peru, with its connected stones that weigh hundreds of tons, all put together without modern cranes. In the story of Tartaria, the star forts, those geometric strongholds found on every continent, might not have been just for defense. They could have been channels for energy, with their angles and sizes made to capture natural vibrations, maybe to give power to cities or even to communicate with other worlds. But some doubts appear as critics bring up historical reasons. They say that huge buildings were meant to show power and create a sense of wonder, not to be homes for giants. Doorways were tall to look impressive, and staircases were wide for parades. The skeletons are often explained as misidentified animal bones or exaggerated stories from a time when newspapers liked to print sensational news. The Smithsonian, they say, is not a secret vault, but a place that listed its findings publicly, with any losses due to poor storage, not a plan to hide them. But these arguments only make people more curious. Why do so many stories, from old Victorian newspapers to Native American lore, say the same thing? If it's all made up, what is the reason for the similar measurements and the shared stories of giant builders in cultures that were not connected? As we go deeper into this puzzle, think about the sound-related proof that is part of these buildings. When you go inside a cathedral or government building from the Tartarian era, you'll notice that sound acts in a strange way. Voices can be heard with amazing clarity. Echoes bounce back in perfect harmony. Theorists believe these were sound chambers designed to control frequencies for healing, creating energy, or even lifting things. Modern science supports this idea. Cymatics is the study of how sound waves can make sand form into geometric shapes, while very low-frequency sound can change the properties of water or cause people to see things that are not there. What if the Tartarians, who might have been giants with extra-sensitive hearing, perfected this skill centuries ago? They could have used it to build without needing to use physical force. Supporters of the ancient aliens theory take this further, suggesting that beings from Orion or Sirius shared this technology. This is shown in Sumerian tablets or Egyptian hieroglyphs that feature tall figures holding staffs that seem to hum with power. The fact that the same style of architecture is found all over the world makes the story even more interesting. From the neoclassical buildings in Chicago to the detailed fronts of buildings in Moscow, the style is the same. There are classical columns, domes that look like the sky, and stonework with mathematical perfection. How did different countries create such similar styles without modern ways of communicating? The theory says it came from a single Tartarian source. Giants spread their knowledge all over their empire. Buried proof backs this up. When San Francisco was being rebuilt after the earthquake, workers found complete building fronts under the debris. They were not broken by the earthquake, but seem to have been buried long before. Similar discoveries in European digs have shown underground systems of hallways with giant-sized features. This has led to talk of an underground shelter for these beings during disasters, which connects to even bigger mysteries. The giants are linked to Atlantis and Mu, lost continents where advanced races, maybe from the same family line, lived before they were sunk. Plato's stories describe Atlanteans as tall and having better technology, and their fall is similar to Tartaria's reset. Edgar Case's psychic visions of Mu tell of giants in the Pacific with crystal technology, whose survivors went on to start new civilizations. Hancock's work in Ancient Apocalypse supports this with underwater oddities near Bimini or Yonaguni that look like harbors built by giants and have been dated to times before known history. Could the Tartarian giants be their descendants? Is their architecture a faint memory of those sunken marvels? The secret plan gets more complicated with modern efforts to hide things. Why do places like the Smithsonian limit who can see certain objects? Stories from insiders say that their vaults contain giant mummies and long skulls with DNA that is not known. Ancient aliens theories suggest that governments have deals with beings from other planets to hide our mixed origins, with giants being either failed experiments or protectors of secret knowledge. Crop circles, those mysterious patterns in fields, might contain giant blueprints. They could be geometric echoes of Tartarian star forts that show up in one night as if made by invisible hands. What secrets do these designs hide? Were giants the designers of our world? Is their story written in stone, waiting for us to find the right frequency to understand it? The sizes, the stories, the hidden bones all point to a history that questions our small view of the past. It encourages us to look up, reach higher, and wonder if we are just small versions of a taller past. Looking at specific places makes the story even more captivating. Consider the Palace of Fine Arts in San Francisco, which is still standing from the 1915 exposition. Its huge arches and pools seem to be made for beings twice our size. Pictures from that time show large empty areas, but if you look closely, you can see strange things, like figures that seem too big, maybe blurred on purpose. Theorists say that old photos were changed to make the sizes look normal, hiding the fact that giants were there. In a similar way, Russia's Hermitage Museum has huge halls with ceilings that are lost in the darkness. It contains items like oversized armor that is said to be just for show, but would fit warriors who were 9 feet tall. The idea of sound technology is endlessly interesting. In Peru's Ollantaytambo, the stones are so close together that a knife blade cannot fit between them. Sound tests have shown frequencies that make it easier to move them. If giants had this power, Tartaria's empire would have been built like a beautiful piece of music. Airships would have hummed along with resonators on the ground. The ancient aliens connection comes in with UFO sightings over giant mound sites, like Ohio's Serpent Mound, where there are spikes in electromagnetic energy, suggesting that some energy is still there. Those who disagree offer the explanation of building big just for the sake of being big. Architects from movements like the Beaux Arts style wanted to create wonder, not to house giants. Skeletons are explained as fakes or as cases of medical conditions like gigantism. But the fact that so many reports exist, from the red-haired mummies of Lovelock Cave to Sardinia's neuralgic towers built for titans, keeps the doubt going. What if the official explanations are the real cover-up? Are they a wall put up by schools to protect against truths that would change everything? As we uncover more, the buildings reveal even more. Hidden rooms in Egyptian pyramids have giant coffins that line up with stars that giants might have used to travel. In the Tartarian story, these are simply outposts. The empire was worldwide, with giants connecting continents using technology that broke the laws of physics. The story of the giants' fall adds a sad note. They might have been defeated by smaller people or by disasters, and their knowledge was broken up into myths. But maybe parts of it are still in our DNA. Maybe the tall tales are true, pushing us to get back to the greatness we have lost. The buildings still stand. They are quiet guards that invite us to figure out their size, to imagine the sound of footsteps that once shook the ground. As we think about these huge mysteries, I'm curious, where are you listening from tonight and what time is it there? Let me know in the comments, and let's see how far these stories of giants have gone. Imagine yourself flying quietly through the evening sky in a huge airship. Its body shines in the starlight as it connects smoothly with the top of a tall dome that quietly hums with an unseen energy. This is a ship that is not run by steam or gas, but by the air itself, collected through crystals that sparkle like trapped lightning. This is not something from a science fiction book. It is an exciting look into the lost technologies of Tartaria. In that place, free energy was as common as water in a river, and star-shaped forts were not made for fighting, but to guide the powers of the universe itself, using sound and vibration as tools to change the world. The fascination with these inventions starts with the airship. These amazing giants were seen in old, blurry photos and little-known pats from the late 1800s and early 1900s. They are often thought of as simple airships that were likely to have accidents, like the Hindenburg. But if you look into the stories, a different idea appears. These were ships that could travel forever, floating with a strange stillness. Their big balloons were not just filled with hydrogen, but maybe also helped by electromagnetic fields pulled from the air. Theorists think these were leftovers of Tartarian technology. In this technology, crystal systems made atmospheric electricity stronger, which allowed for quiet and easy travel between continents. Think about docking ports on top of skyscrapers in cities like Tulsa or New York. Old drawings show airships tying up to tall buildings with great accuracy, letting people and goods on and off without the sound of loud engines. Why do the official history books not talk much about these abilities? They call them early flying experiments, even though people who saw them at the time talked about lights and humming sounds that suggest anti-gravity power. This brings us to the main part of Tartaria's amazing technology, which is free energy. This was an idea that offered endless power without needing coal, oil, or nuclear energy, but it was supposedly hidden to protect powerful businesses. Nikola Tesla, the mysterious inventor, might have gotten his ideas from Tartarian artifacts. His experiments with sending energy without wires are similar to what theorists think was common in the lost civilization. Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower was meant to send electricity all over the world, but it was taken down because of money problems. But what if it used the same ideas, capturing the natural electrical charge of the upper atmosphere with matching frequencies? The Illuminati, that secret group of powerful people often mentioned in conspiracy theories, are said to have planned the cover-up. They made sure that free energy stayed hidden because it would have destroyed the power of industrial giants like Rockefeller and Morgan. What if patents from the 1800s, which are now forgotten in old files, describe machines that can get power from the air but were hidden for reasons of national security? Crystal power is another key part of this mystery. Supporters say that Tartarians used quartz and other minerals to make energy stronger, creating networks that sent power without wires over long distances. Old writings from Atlantis and Mu, which some stories say came before Tartaria, talk about similar technology. They describe crystals that were tuned to the Earth's energy lines, creating fields that gave power to whole cities. In today's world, experiments with piezoelectric crystals show how pressure can create electricity. But if this was done on a Tartarian scale, it could have been used to lift stones or light up streets without any wires. Why do we find huge deposits of quartz near places that are thought to be Tartarian sites, like in the far-off areas of Siberia, where there are also strange electromagnetic events that cannot be explained? Could the Tunguska explosion of 1908 have been a broken crystal system that let out a blast that knocked down forests but did not leave a hole? Now, let's look at the star forts, those strange geometric strongholds found all over Europe, North America, and Asia. Their pointed walls create complex patterns that do not seem to be just for military use. Standard history books call them defenses from the Renaissance period, made to protect against cannonballs. They were designed by engineers like Vauban to have the best angles for shooting. But if you look closer, the shapes seem to have a deeper meaning. The sizes match up with sacred math. The angles seem to vibrate with sound waves or electromagnetic fields. Theorists believe these were machines that controlled energy. They were built to focus the Earth's natural currents, maybe to create power or even to protect against dangers from space. If you go inside one, like Fort Ebenemehl in Belgium or Fort Monroe in America, you can feel the strange sounds. Sounds get louder in an unnatural way, and echoes create standing waves that can affect physical objects. The link to cathedrals makes this mystery even more interesting. Their high, arched ceilings act as giant resonance chambers. In places like Notre Dame or Washington's National Cathedral, which have styles similar to Tartarian buildings, the architecture makes frequencies stronger in ways that seem almost magical. Your voice travels, bounces back, and sometimes makes you feel very happy or in a different state of mind, as if it was made for ceremonies that used sound to heal or give energy. Recent studies in archaeoacoustics show how old places like Malta's hypogeum use Helmholtz resonance to create very low-frequency sound that changes brain waves. What if the Tartarians, who were masters of this, used it not for religious talks but to power machines, lift things, or talk over long distances? The New World Order, a popular modern conspiracy theory, is accused of hiding this knowledge. They have turned the forts into tourist spots while hiding what they were really for. Maybe they are still being used in secret ways, which would explain strange power surges in the areas around them. Think about what this would mean for our world. If free energy was real, why do we keep using fossil fuels? Conspiracy theories point to the Illuminati's involvement. This is a secret group that goes back to ancient societies that guarded Tartarian secrets to stay in control. Tesla's failure, with his funding being cut and his ideas being made fun of, is a good example of this. His notes were supposedly taken by the government after he died. Airships also had suspicious endings. The Hindenburg disaster in 1937 was shown everywhere and made people afraid, which stopped development right when wireless power was about to become a reality. Were these acts of sabotage to make sure we stayed dependent on resources that could be controlled? The fact that star forts are found all over the world adds more layers of wonder. They are found from the star-like ruins of Vijayanagara in India to the less-known earthworks in Africa. They are often located in places with strong geomagnetic fields, which suggests they were part of a network that used the planet's energy. Imagine a system that covered Tartaria's empire, giving power to airships that could travel without needing to refuel, docking at towers with crystal receivers. Strange historical events support this. In the 1920s, there were stories of airships over cities that were denied by officials. There were also patents like Otis cars for flying saucers that used counter-rotating electromagnets, which is similar to Tartarian technology. But curiosity requires a balanced view. What if these forts were really for military use and their shapes were just practical for defense? The sounds in cathedrals could just be an architectural choice to create a feeling of spiritual awe. The laws of thermodynamics say that free energy is impossible and Tesla's dreams were not practical. But these arguments only make the mystery more interesting. Why are there hidden patents for over-unity devices that create more energy than they use? Why do insiders from secret projects talk about anti-gravity ships that are based on old plans? Going further, the technology is connected to influences from other planets, as in the ancient alien story. Erich von Däniken's Chariots of the Gods suggests that visitors taught us resonance technology. The star forts could have been landing pads that lined up with star patterns. Crop circles near these places often have the same shapes. Maybe they are modern signs of the same energy patterns. Strange events in the Bermuda Triangle, where ships disappear in electromagnetic storms, could be caused by uncontrolled Tartarian fields. These could be portals that are activated by crystal vibrations that have gone wrong. The money angle leads to endless guessing. A world with free energy would destroy oil empires, spread wealth, and give power to the people. The Illuminati, whose symbols are seen on dollar bills and in buildings, are said to keep us in a state of scarcity. Graham Hancock's Fingerprints of the Gods connects this to Ice Age technology that was hidden to keep history moving in a straight line. Tartaria would be a post-Ice Age society with refined airships that traveled along energy lines, with forts holding the system together. What is left in the remote forts of Siberia? People there say they see glowing lights at night. In European cathedrals, choirs have put people into trance-like states. Tesla's lost papers, maybe hidden in vaults, could hold the answers. As the night grows darker, these technologies call to us from the past, offering a new future. Imagine silent airships in the sky, minds humming with power and glowing crystals. What if the key to our future is hidden in the forbidden wonders of the past? The mystery remains, pulling us deeper into the night. What if, while looking through old files in a hidden corner of a library, you found an old photo from the 1893 Chicago World's Fair? It shows a huge white city with neoclassical palaces that were built on swampland in just a few months. But then, it was torn down soon after. as if the whole thing was a big trick to show off and then destroy the leftovers of a hidden empire. The picture shows more than 200 buildings spread over 600 acres. Their marble-like fronts shine under electric lights, showing a level of skill that is hard to believe for a time of horse-drawn carts and new industry. But if you look past the official story of a celebration, the world's Columbian Exposition seems to be a key part of the Tartaria conspiracy. In this theory, these huge buildings were not quickly built for a fair, but were inherited from a lost civilization. They were fixed up for a short time and then destroyed to get rid of architectural proof that could change human history. The fair's timeline itself is a source of endless wonder. It was designed and built in only 2 years to celebrate Columbus's journey. It had massive structures like the Manufactures and Liberal Arts Building, which was 44 acres in size. It was big enough to fit the United States Capitol, the Great Pyramid, and several cathedrals inside, with space still left over. Official records say it was all meant to be temporary, made from a mix of plaster, cement, and fiber called staff. But photos show detailed ironwork, glass walls, and features that are as good as permanent masterpieces. How did the workers, many of whom were unskilled immigrants, do this in the middle of Chicago's muddy mess, with no past experience with projects of this size? Theorists argue that the White City was not built from scratch, but was already there. It was made of Tartarian relics that were dug up or reused. Their advanced design would explain the impossibly fast construction. The fair's organizers, including architect Daniel Burnham, said it was all new and innovative. But there are whispers that they just cleaned up old building fronts and let millions of people look at them before they were burned down. This same pattern is seen at other world's fairs. The 1904 St. Louis Exposition had its beautiful lagoons and palaces. The 1915 San Francisco Panama Pacific Exposition rose like a phoenix from the ruins of an earthquake. Each one had temporary wonders that were torn down after the event, with the reason given that it saved money. But the destruction seems suspiciously complete. Fires burned down what was left, like in Chicago, where flames destroyed much of the fairgrounds after it closed. Why spend a fortune on something beautiful just to destroy it? A conspiratorial view shows a cover-up. These expositions were planned showings of Tartarian architecture. They let the powerful document and take apart the buildings, hiding the technology that was built into the stones. The Freemasons, who are often connected to the fair's planners, Burnham himself was rumored to be one, are said to have been the gatekeepers. Their symbols were carved into the layouts, which looked like mysterious geometric patterns. The similar style of the architecture makes the story even more interesting. It matches Tartarian features like neoclassical columns, fancy domes, and perfect stonework that is seen in places all over the world, from St. Petersburg to Buenos Aires. In Chicago, the buildings in the Court of Honor had the same style as buried structures found worldwide. This suggests it was not new but inherited. Some people say there are no construction photos. Skeptics point to archives that are full of them, showing workers pouring foundations and putting up scaffolding. But theorists say that many of these are fake or are missing for important parts of the construction, as if the main buildings were there before the fair. Fun fact, the Ferris wheel, a marvel of steel, was introduced at the fair, but calling it temporary does not match its strength. Why not keep more of it like the Palace of Fine Arts, the only building left which is now a museum? Looking into the Masonic connections adds a dark layer. The fair's opening ceremonies were full of ritual. Burnham's circle included important Freemasons. Conspiracy theories suggest that the Brotherhood, as keepers of ancient knowledge, used the fairs to list Tartarian leftovers before they were destroyed. Their symbols, like pyramids and obelisks in the layouts, hinted at energy grids. The idea of the Illuminati makes this even bigger. They believed that the powerful were hiding free energy, which was hinted at in the fair's electric displays. Over 20,000 light bulbs were powered by alternating current, which was Tesla's work. But the system underneath, may be made of Tartarian crystals, hummed with power. Ancient aliens theories add an extraterrestrial twist. What if the fairs were a cover for recovered alien technology? The buildings could have been reverse-engineered artifacts from star-traveling visitors who helped the Tartarians, in the style of von Däniken. The fast creation of the White City is like the perfect cuts of Puma Punku, which would be impossible without levitation tools. UFO lore connects to this, with sightings over the fairgrounds, maybe of probes scanning the old structures. The destruction was to keep the public from finding out, just like the cover-ups at Roswell. But the fair's innovations were genuinely amazing. It introduced zippers, Cracker Jack, and even Aunt Jemima syrup. These were cultural milestones set among architectural beauty. Those who debunk the theories point out that the staff material was cheap and dried quickly, making it perfect for temporary buildings. Photos exist in places like the Chicago Historical Society that show dredges turning the swamps of Jackson Park into the fairgrounds. The demolition was practical because the buildings were not safe for long-term use, and the land was turned into parks. But these explanations do not hold up against the strange facts. Why do photos of the fair show empty streets as if after a disaster? Were they long exposures that blurred the crowds, or were they staged to look empty? Reddit threads are full of discoveries. Users look at blueprints and find things that do not make sense, like surveys from before the fair that show strange foundations. TikTok videos zoom in on detailed work and question the technology of the 1890s. Bloomberg articles call it the wildest conspiracy in architecture. Believers see survivors of a Tartarian mud flood in the White City and see the fairs as illusions that hide historical resets. The connections are wide-ranging. The 1871 Chicago fire that happened before the fair destroyed records, which would be convenient for hiding where the buildings came from. The St. Louis Fair had human zoos. These terrible ethical displays might have been a distraction from the architectural investigations. San Francisco's impossibly fast rebuilding after the earthquake is similar to Tartarian strength. The cover-up got deeper with government involvement. The fairs were funded by Congress, and the exhibits showed artifacts from around the world, like Egyptian obelisks and Asian pavilions, which might have been a way of bringing back Tartarian treasures. The influence of Freemasons in Washington is also connected, as their Capitol designs are similar to the fair's style. What is left after the demolition? There are scattered pieces. A Japanese garden in Chicago, fragments in museums, but the erasure seems planned. Blueprints disappeared. The stories of workers were silenced. As for ancient aliens, maybe the fairs were a test of how the public would react to technology derived from aliens. Tesla's coils could be echoes of extraterrestrial gifts. If you walk through Jackson Park today, you can feel echoes in the wind. Was it a fair, or was it a funeral for an empire? Fun fact, the fair's lagoon had gondolas from Venice, mixing two worlds. But the real mix was the Tartarian past with a fake present. Debunkers mention Erik Larson's The Devil in the White City, which tells the story of a serial killer among the beauty, but theorists see it as a metaphor for dark forces at play. Wikipedia calls Tartaria fake history, but forums are full of photo journeys of what is left. Videos are everywhere. YouTube analyses call the fairs destroyed cities and connect them to millennial reign conspiracies. Author Evan's Delusion describes believers as architecture fans who are disappointed with modern design. The architecture might hide things, perhaps in its symmetries that contain lost math, with domes acting as resonators. The debate over the lack of photos continues. Archives have thousands, but key angles are missing, which fuels the doubt. As curiosity grows, think about this. If the fairs were cover-ups, what technology was hidden? Were there energy fields in the lagoons, alien metals in the wheels? The glow of the White City was not just from light bulbs. Perhaps it was leftover Tartarian power. The mystery continues. The Chicago Fair was a bright light that was put out, leaving questions that glow in the dark. What plans are buried, waiting to shed light on hidden histories? The architecture whispers, calling for deeper investigation into the fair's short-lived greatness. If these mysteries of lost beauty make you curious, think about subscribing to Mystery History for sleep and tapping the bell icon to get every new story. We would love to have you with us for the next discovery. Let's explore the dark parts of the 1800s, a time full of fires that burned down cities, earthquakes that split the ground, and diseases that killed millions. These events are recorded as separate, unfortunate events, but when you look at them through the lens of Tartaria's fall, they become planned acts of destruction. They seem to be parts of a great reset that was meant to get rid of an advanced empire and restart humanity under new leadership. The word reset makes us think of modern changes to the economy, but in this story, it means a deliberate erasure. Disasters were not just acts of nature, but were tools used by secret powers to bury Tartaria's history, making sure its technologies and peaceful ways were forgotten. The story begins with the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. This fire burned 3 square miles, turning beautiful buildings into dust while leaving simpler ones standing in ways that don't make sense. The official story is that a cow kicked over a lantern in Mrs. O'Leary's barn, but theorists look closely at the specific destruction and suggest that plasma blasts came from the sky. These were heavenly bolts that looked like lightning, but left behind glassy material on the ruins. Plasma, that super-hot state of matter, could be the reason for the melted stonework that was found after the fire. It is similar to the vitrified forts in Scotland or India, where temperatures got much hotter than in normal fires. Was this a deliberate attack that used atmospheric energies to burn down Tartarian strongholds? Maybe their energy grids malfunctioned or were sabotaged. The timing of the fire, just a few decades after Tartaria disappeared from maps, lines up strangely with the rebuilding of cities. In these rebirths, streets were raised over buried layers, hiding a mud flood full of unexplained objects. From there, the reset continues with the San Francisco earthquake of 1906. This was a magnitude 7.9 tremor that knocked down the city, and it was followed by fires that burned what was left. But in the debris, workers found complete building fronts and detailed designs that had been buried for decades. They were not broken by the earthquake, but seemed to have been buried before. Official seismology says it was caused by the San Andreas Fault. But conspiracy groups talk about planned disasters, maybe caused by harmonic resonance. These could be weapons that made natural faults worse, turning the soil into liquid in a localized mud flood. People who saw it said there were strange lights in the sky before the earthquake, like earthquake lights or plasma events. This has led to talk of Tartarian technology being misused, with defensive systems being turned against their own creators. The fast rebuilding, with amazing structures appearing in just a few years, suggests that Tartarian plans were saved. Their advanced earthquake-resistant designs were used again, while the originals were hidden. These disasters are not isolated events. They are part of a larger pattern of worldwide chaos. This includes the Tunguska event of 1908 in Siberia, the heart of Tartaria. A huge explosion flattened 800 square miles of forest without leaving a crater. It is said to have been a meteor, but some theories suggest it was a broken Tartarian energy device or a retaliatory attack. The power of the blast was similar to that of nuclear bombs, but there was no radiation left behind. This suggests that plasma or scalar waves were involved. These are invisible forces that can hit specific areas. People in Siberia whispered about old ruins that were glowing beforehand. This connects to the mud flood lore, where liquefied earth swallowed cities, leaving behind flat landscapes. Why Siberia, an area that was once called Grand Tartary on maps? Maybe it was the last stronghold, and its reset is hiding huge underground networks that are now thought to be natural caves. The Great Mud Flood itself is the main part of the reset. It is a theorized flood of liquefied soil in the mid-1800s. It was not a flood of water, but a geological sludge that buried buildings all over the world, turning streets into rooftops and basements into time capsules. Theorists, like those in the Mud Flood Hypothesis books, point to the consistent burial depths, often 10 to 20 feet, in cities from Seattle to Moscow. These cities have detailed windows at ground level and doors that go nowhere. Mainstream geology explains this as slow buildup of sediment from floods or urban fill, but the fact that it is the same across continents suggests a single event. It might have been caused by electromagnetic pulses that made soil particles unstable, causing them to turn to liquid instantly. Stories from that time tell of sudden mud surges that swallowed farm animals and houses overnight. This is echoed in folktales about the earth swallowing things up. Interestingly, this connects to tsunamis and floods of biblical size, like the Black Sea deluge or the Pacific waves that theorists say washed over Tartarian coasts. These waves left behind layers of debris that hardened into new ground. The Bermuda Triangle is seen as a leftover anomaly. The disappearances there could be due to unstable Tartarian portals. These could be energy vortexes from mud-flooded grids that are warping spacetime and making ships vanish in electromagnetic fogs. Sailors' logs from the 1800s mention glowing waters and compasses not working there. This is similar to the plasma sightings that happened before the resets. Could these be echoes of defensive technology that is now broken, linking ocean resets to land-based mud floods? The conspiracy theory grows to include world wars as cover-ups. World War I and II, with their bombings and scorched earth tactics, are said to have targeted Tartarian leftovers. European cities were destroyed not just for strategic reasons, but to get rid of architectural clues. The firebombing of Dresden or the atomic blast in Hiroshima, some say, were tests of weapons on sites that had hidden technology. The destruction hid the digging up of buried artifacts. The Spanish flu pandemic is seen as a biological reset that killed off populations who knew the truths about Tartaria. The fast spread of the disease was not like a natural epidemic and might have been created from ancient germs that were dug up from the mud layers. Graham Hancock's Ancient Apocalypse expands on these ideas. He suggests that comet impacts 12,000 years ago were resets that drowned Ice Age civilizations, and their survivors started Tartaria. Hancock's evidence includes megalithic sites like Gunung Padang, which are older than known history. These parallel the mud flood burials, suggesting that disasters happen in cycles. His critics call it fake history, but believers see a pattern. They see mud floods as small apocalypses and plasma from comets or man-made sources as mimicking ancient strikes. Ancient aliens theories add extraterrestrial reasons. They suggest that visitors engineered resets to control evolution and that Tartaria's fall was a galactic intervention. Modern parallels are interesting. The 2020 Great Reset economic proposal brings up conspiracies of ongoing cycles. While digital resets are being planned by elites, historical ones are being concealed. Theories from Slovakia that combine mud floods with magic, mind control, and nuclear weapons are among the wild variations, which imagine Tartarian psychics fighting off invasions before being defeated. An examination of architectural conspiracies by Bloomberg reveals that believers see resets as changes from decorative to modernist designs that erase beauty in favor of control. Counterarguments from debunkers suggest that fires from wooden city buildings, earthquakes from tectonic plates, and wars from politics are examples of natural chaos, not elaborate schemes. It is also argued that mud floods are just exaggerated versions of local floods or landfill projects. Still, strange things continue to happen. What is the reason for vitrified soil at reset sites, which is similar to the ancient nuclear ruins of Mohenjo-Daro? Why do artifact discoveries seem to happen at the same time as pandemics? Take a walk through a historic area that has been scarred by fire. Can you perceive the gentle hum of the ground? Is that the sound of traffic, or is it the stirring of buried energies? History is recycled by resets, but the whispers of survivors live on in folklore, pushing us to ask whether the next disaster is coming or if figuring out these codes will help us prevent it. A puzzle of planned destruction, where the reset of Tartaria is a warning of our own weakness, is made up of pieces like plasma skies, mud tsunamis, and the cover of war. What hidden treasures are waiting beneath your feet? They are the silent guards of storms that have been forgotten. A sunken continent filled with shining crystal towers that reach up from the bottom of the ocean can be imagined. The glow from these towers lights up underwater gardens, where wise, glowing beings use the power of the tides for endless energy. But then, huge, destructive waves came and swallowed everything. The survivors were scattered all over the world to start new empires, and their knowledge was broken into small pieces and carried away like whispers on the wind. This image of Mu, the mythical motherland of humanity that is often called the cradle of civilization before even Atlantis, invites us to follow its magical connections to Tartaria. This suggests that these are not separate myths, but a chain of civilizations that were connected, with each one building on the ruins of the one before it. The shared secrets of these civilizations have been hidden by time and purposeful secrecy. Mu was first made famous by James Churchward, a 19th-century occultist. Through old tablets he said he translated in India. It is shown as a paradise in the Pacific Ocean that existed tens of thousands of years before recorded history. It was a land of advanced peace where mind reading and floating were normal. Energy beacons were what pyramids were used for, and society grew without any fighting. Churchward's tablets, which he claimed were from the Nacal people, described Mu as stretching from Easter Island to the Marianas. Its people set up colonies all over the world before a shift in the poles and massive volcano eruptions caused it to sink. People who survived fled to places like Peru, Egypt, and the lands that would later become Tartaria. The interesting part is found in the similarities. Mu's crystal technology is like Tartaria's supposed method of gathering energy from the atmosphere. It is said that both civilizations mastered free power that made scarcity impossible. Their destruction was linked to massive earth changes, which sounds like the terrible liquefaction of the mud floods. Churchward stories, which scholars have rejected as made-up tales inspired by Mayan symbols and Hindu beliefs, have found new popularity in conspiracy groups that connect Mu to Lemuria, a theoretical landmass that 19th-century biologists suggested to explain why similar animals were found across the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Lemuria was reimagined by theosophists like Helena Blavatsky as a spiritual home for root races. In stories of ancient motherlands, it blends with Mu. Their descendants are said to have built Atlantis in the Atlantic Ocean before it also sank around 12,000 years ago, as Plato wrote about in his works Timaeus and Critias. The story from Plato, which he got from Egyptian priests, shows Atlantis as a strong naval power with rings of water and land one inside the other, advanced metalworking, and a pride that brought on the anger of the gods through earthquakes and floods. But what if Atlantis was not the end, but a link? Could it be that refugees from Mu started it, and then survivors from Atlantis moved east to create Tartaria? The possible links lead to endless guessing. The huge area of Tartaria in Asia, which was once shown on maps as covering everything from Siberia to the Pacific, matches up with the eastern edges of Mu. Survivors might have settled there with the local people and built star forts that were like echoes of Mu's geometric energy grids. Visions of Mu's destruction around 50,000 BC were channeled by Edgar Cayce, who was known as the Sleeping Prophet. Its people scattered to the Gobi Desert area, which was prime Tartarian territory. They brought with them knowledge of pyramids that worked as power plants, much like the ones in Giza or Bosnia that are thought to be Tartarian outposts. According to Cayce, Atlantis sank 10,000 years before Christ, sending waves of people to the Yucatan and Europe. But some stories mix the timelines, suggesting that Tartaria was a federation that came after Atlantis, mixing Mu's spiritual technology with Atlantean engineering. This combination inspires theories of a single ancient network. In this network, crop circles, those mysterious artworks that appear in fields all over the world overnight, are seen as messages from the descendants of Mu or Atlantis who were part of Tartaria's heritage. These formations, which are often geometric copies of star forts or pyramid layouts, show plasma-like burns and stretched nodes that can't be explained by human tricks. This suggests they were made by the electromagnetic marks of lost devices. In Wiltshire, England, near old stone structures, circles look like the rings of Atlantis. In Siberia, patterns bring to mind Mu's sun's symbols. Fans of ancient aliens, like those in Giorgio Tsoukalos's documentaries, believe that extraterrestrials are the link between everything. They think that these visitors gave the gift of anti-gravity technology to Mu, which was then improved in Atlantis and protected in Tartaria until resets spread the knowledge. Plato's stories, which might have been censored or told as fables to hide the truth, have similarities to the disappearance of Tartaria from maps. Both civilizations were erased from historical records, and their advanced navies and buildings were turned into myths. Egyptian priests told Solon about Atlantis' war with Athens 9,000 years earlier. But in conspiracies, timelines might shift, perhaps shortened by church rewrites, as seen in Anatoly Fomenko's New Chronology, which shortens history and connects Tartaria to medieval khanates, reminding us of Mu's vastness. In videos like Tartaria Revealed, the Catholic Church is accused of making up centuries to control history. It might have hidden the stories of Mu and Atlantis to make biblical origins the central story, burying pagan motherlands in heresy. The stories of survivors add touching details. According to Cayce, refugees from Mu got to Mount Shasta in California, where stories say underground cities still exist, with Lemurian crystals humming in caves. As the heir to this legacy, Tartaria could have similar hidden communities in the Siberian taiga, which would explain shamanic beliefs about spirit worlds and the manipulation of energy. The Inca of Peru, with their massive stone walls at Sacsayhuaman, say they are descended from sun gods, who could have been people from Mu. Their temples covered in gold sheets are similar to the orichalcum of Atlantis. Graham Hancock's research in America before reveals sites from the Clovis era with hints of Atlantis, suggesting that voyages across the ocean happened before Columbus. These could have been Tartarian ships following routes from after Mu's sinking. The Romanian Tartaria tablets, which are clay objects from 5300 BC with early writing, point to scripts that existed before the Sumerians. They could be relics from Mu that washed up in Europe. Wikipedia calls this pseudo-archaeology, but fans see links to Tartaria's name, creating a language bridge to the ancient motherlands. Threads on Quora discuss other great civilizations, like Hyperborea in the Arctic and Shambhala in Tibet. All of these could be offshoots of Mu, and their free energy technology was suppressed by modern secret groups who feared it would cause chaos in society. Debates are fierce on Reddit. Does Atlantis clash with Tartaria, or do they combine in different timelines? Some people guess that there are quantum overlaps where huge disasters like pole shifts mix realities, so the sinking of Mu led to the creation of Atlantis, and its fall led to the rise of Tartaria. Videos on Rumble look at mud floods as echoes of Mu's volcanic eruptions, where liquefied earth swallows empires in repeating cycles. Dives into the truth behind these lands on YouTube point out similarities: advanced harmony, sudden disappearances, and survivor groups spreading myths. Official history dismisses Tartaria as nonsense, a lost empire created from mistakes in map reading. But even those who doubt it admit its appeal. Why do stories from all over the world come together on the idea of sunken motherlands? The scrubbing of Tartaria from history, similar to how Atlantis faded from fact to myth, is one of the interesting details. Lists of lost cities group Mu, Lemuria, Atlantis, and Tartaria together as romantic escapes from boring history. The mystery gets deeper. You can explore the moai of Easter Island, which are seen as sentinels from Mu staring out to sea. Their basalt stone is like the monoliths of Tartaria. Or you can look at the underwater steppes of Yonaguni off the coast of Japan, which some say are ruins from Atlantis and others say are from Mu. Proponents of ancient aliens, like Sitchin, connect the Anunnaki to all of these, suggesting they were gods who engineered humanity across these motherlands. What if figuring out these connections could unlock hidden abilities, telepathy from Mu, navigation skills from Atlantis, and energy knowledge from Tartaria? The bloodlines of survivors might be mixed in us. Crop circles could be calls for us to awaken. The motherlands whisper through the ruins, encouraging us to be curious. Are we just echoes of something much greater? Is our world a broken heirloom? Pole shifts are predicted in prophecies. Case predicted that California would sink, similar to what happened to Mu. If you trace Tartarian maps, you might find hidden centers. These motherlands gave birth to us. Their secrets hold the seeds for futures we can't yet imagine. What legacies are waiting to be found again, connecting lost times to our own? The puzzle invites us to put the pieces together, which are scattered like the diaspora, waiting to be assembled in the quiet moments. In the quiet records of biblical prophecy, two names rumble like thunder over empty lands: Gog and Magog. They are seen as signs of doomsday chaos, tribes that are meant to send out hordes to attack the world in a final, terrible rush. But what if these are not just symbolic stories of faraway barbarians? What if they are hidden references to a real force that once fought against the greatness of Tartaria, attacking through shining portals that warped reality itself? Old texts from Ezekiel to Revelation describe them as invaders from the north who were blocked off by the famous walls of Alexander the Great. However, modern conspiracies see them in a new light, as demonic beings or alien rulers. Their kingdom is said to overlap with the huge plains of Siberia, the heart of the wiped-out Tartarian Empire. In this region, UFO sightings flash like ghostly warnings, and the 2014 Sochi Olympic ceremony is believed to have shown their victory through symbolic displays. For a long time, biblical experts have argued about who Gog and Magog really are. Ezekiel 38 portrays Gog as a prince of Meshech and Tubal, leading armies from the far north to attack Israel. This is a vision of the end times, Armageddon, where fire pours down from the sky. Revelation 20 takes this further, showing them as nations that are tricked by Satan after 1,000 years of peace. They march across the world, only to be eaten by divine fire. Islamic beliefs in the Quran's Al-Kahf mirror this with Dhul-Qarnayn, who is often thought to be Alexander. He builds a wall of iron and copper to hold back Ya'juj and Ma'juj, Gog and Magog, who are described as savage tribes digging their way out to escape before Judgment Day. Old maps, like the Catalan Atlas from 1375, show them in the wild parts of Asia, in lands labeled Tartaria. This was where nomadic hordes lived, far from what was considered civilized. However, conspiracy theorists change this into a real invasion. They see Gog and Magog as the enemy of Tartaria, a wicked group, maybe made of demonic hybrids or alien agents, that secretly entered and destroyed the empire from the inside, using portals as their way in for the attack. The fascination grows when we place these prophecies over the territories shown on Tartaria's maps. Charts from the 17th century, like the 1684 map by Giacomo Cantelli de Vignola, clearly mark Gog and Magog inside the borders of Great Tartary. They are located between the Black and Caspian Seas, in areas that have historically been linked to the Khazars and Scythians, peoples that some connect to the lost tribes of the Bible. Posts on platforms like X point to these map clues, suggesting that Tartaria itself was Gog and Magog, a biblical evil empire that was erased by the winners, who then rewrote history to make it the villain in end-time stories. One user shares a close-up of a 1684 map that shows Gog and Magog in the vast lands of Siberia, along with the burial sites of Tartarian kings. This implies that a royal family line was turned into a symbol of doomsday enemies. Another post connects it to the Tunguska event of 1908, a huge explosion in Siberia that flattened forests. This might have been the final attack on what was left of Tartaria, an energy weapon blast that was mistaken for a meteor. Could these tribes have been the different ethnic groups of Tartaria, such as the Turks, Mongols, and Tatars? Were they labeled as satanic hordes by the stories of those who conquered them, with their advanced society being twisted into biblical villains? This demonic view then twists into otherworldly territories, where Gog and Magog change into alien invaders breaking through portals. These are Stargate-like gateways that are theorized in ancient myths and modern pseudoscience. The Iraqi Stargate conspiracy, which became popular in the early 2000s, says that Saddam Hussein found a portal in the ziggurat of Ur. This device was for travel between dimensions and was guarded by Anunnaki gods, which led to the US invasion to take it. In a similar way, Sri Lanka's Ranmasuyana has a stone Stargate chart that is seen as a code for opening cosmic doors. Its symbols line up with the world's ley lines. In the story of Tartaria, these portals become entry points for invasion. Gog and Magog are seen as forces from another world slipping through tiers in reality in Siberia, where UFO sightings are common. Reports from the 2010s tell of orbs and disks over Lake Baikal, which was old Tartarian land. Locals described metallic humming sounds and crafts that vanished, which sound like demonic attacks or alien landing zones. TikTok videos make this idea bigger, connecting strange events in Siberia to Tartarian defenses that were broken by portal technology, maybe stargates like the ones in the SG-1 story, where wormholes link galaxies. The 2014 Sochi Olympics opening ceremony brings this into the modern world of conspiracy. Theorists analyze the grand show as a secret retelling of Tartaria's fall to Gog and Magog. The ceremony, held in Russia, the modern successor to Tartarian lands, had floating structures that changed into rings, with one famously not working correctly. This was seen as a deliberate portal glitch, a symbol of broken gateways. Parts of the show pictured a peaceful city being threatened by dark forces coming out of empty spaces. They were winning at first, but were eventually defeated, which mirrors Tartaria's early wins against outside threats before it was weakened by corruption from within. Russian television did not show the ring failure, which added to claims of a cover-up. While the event's controversies, like doping scandals and anti-gay laws, distracted from the supposed hidden message, it was seen as a nod from the Putin era to a suppressed history. Online articles connect this to biblical prophecies, suggesting that Sochi's location near the Black Sea, close to where Gog and Magog were mapped, was part of a ritualistic reveal. Was the ceremony a pageant by the Freemasons or the Illuminati? Portals were symbolized by floating snowflakes, and demonic forces were represented by the invading athletes. UFOs in Siberia make the portal mystery even more intense. In the 1986 Dalnogorsk incident, a round object crashed and left behind strange alloys that were analyzed as not being from Earth, near the edges of Tartarian maps. Recent TikToks show alien ships over Siberian lakes, connecting them to ancient stargates like the one in Iraq, where Sumerian stories tell of Anunnaki gods, who might be the true form of Gog and Magog, coming down through gates. Theories mix demons and aliens. Revelations, deceived nations, are seen as hybrid beings. Portals are thought to have unleashed them upon Tartaria. Their secret entry is said to have caused society to rot before the physical attacks began. Articles on Medium guess that Tartaria was the millennial kingdom. Gog and Magog's attack after this period lines up with the mud floods and resets. Official history dismisses Tartaria as a fantasy. Gog and Magog are seen as symbolic enemies, like the Scythians. But strange things remain. Why do 1684 maps show them in Tartary, with the burial sites of kings marked? Users on X share details from the Catalan Atlas that show them as Tartarian cannibals who are walled in. Alexander's gates are seen as seals for the portals. YouTube videos like Tartaria, Gog, and Magog look at the biblical links, suggesting that Tartaria was a Christian kingdom that was defeated by satanic hordes. Quora rejects the idea of hidden empires, yet forums are full of talk about end times connections, with Tartaria being the kingdom of Gog that was erased after Armageddon. Go for a walk in the Siberian forests. You might spot a UFO, an echo of a portal. Watch the Sochi footage. Try to decode the symbols, the demonic plan. Ancient stargates in Egypt or Peru are similar to this. They were cosmic doors that the Tartarians guarded until they were overrun. Whether demons or aliens, Gog and Magog represent the classic idea of an invasion. Their portals are rips in the fabric of reality. What if the skies of Siberia hold the keys, with sightings being signs of returning forces? The prophecy is happening. The fall of Tartaria is a warning. Portals whisper of worlds beyond our own. Forces hide in the embrace of the night. Think about it. Are we the next ones in their way, or are we the heirs who will seal the gates again? The mystery pulses, pulling souls to the edge. Beneath the appearance of kind charity in the late 19th century, a hidden network of trains moved across America, carrying thousands of parentless children from busy eastern cities to the countryside. This movement was praised as a new idea in social welfare, but it is surrounded by questions that go to the core of Tartaria's supposed erasure. These orphan trains, which ran from 1854 to 1929 under the direction of groups like the Children's Aid Society and the New York Foundling Hospital, moved about 250,000 children. Many of them disappeared into adoptive homes with very few records, which has led to modern theories that this was not just a social program. Instead, it is seen as a planned effort to repopulate the country after a worldwide reset that killed off most of Tartaria's people. The mystery starts with how massive it was. Why would so many young people be sent to the West, often without their parents' permission or careful checks, if not to fill up empty lands that were left deserted by disasters like mud floods or plasma events? Supporters of this theory whisper that these children were not really orphans. They believe they were survivors from Tartarian families whose memories were hidden and whose identities were changed to rebuild society under new leaders. The Children's Aid Society, which was started by Charles Loring Brace in 1853, presented the trains as a way to save children from the terrible conditions of city slums. They sent kids to farms in the Midwest, where they became workers or were adopted. But a look at the old records shows things that don't add up. Many orphans had living parents who just couldn't pay for their care, while others suddenly showed up in records after disasters happened. Brace's own writings make the effort sound heroic. However, critics in newspapers at the time called it child trafficking, with the writers being sold off at stops like cattle. In the lore of Tartaria, this is connected to what happened after the mud floods. Huge cities were left empty of people, and their advanced buildings stood vacant. This required new people to move in and cover up what was left of the old world. What other reason could there be for the rush to send Eastern youths, many of whom were the children of immigrants, to the heartland where unexplained Tartarian buildings stood? Secret groups are part of this story, and none is more mysterious than the Independent Order of Odd Fellows, a fraternal organization that started in the early 19th century. Their meeting halls appeared in towns during the Reset era with the goals of visiting the sick, helping the needy, burying the dead, and educating the orphans. Orphanages run by the Odd Fellows were found all over the country, taking in abandoned children among symbols of three links representing friendship, love, and truth. However, conspiracies see them as agents of the Reset, gathering the children of Tartarian survivors to teach them the ways of the New World. Their secret ceremonies, much like those of the Freemasons, included rituals with skeletons and moral plays that were similar to ancient mystery schools. The Freemasons, with their square and compass symbols found on buildings that look like they are from Tartaria, are accused of planning the trains. Their networks are said to have helped with the distribution of children to repopulate ghost cities. Why did the halls of the Odd Fellows often have buried basements with strange objects, similar to buildings that were flooded with mud? The phenomenon of the Cabbage Patch Baby adds even stranger elements to the story. In the late 19th century, World's Fairs had exhibits of incubators with premature babies shown off like oddities, supposedly taken from the orphan trains. These infantoriums, like the one at the 1904 St. Louis Exposition, did save lives, but they also started rumors of cloned or manufactured children being used to fill the empty spaces after the Reset. Old stories connected babies to cabbages, which were a symbol of fertility, but conspiracy theories link this to Tartarian biotechnology, where advanced methods of gestation copied nature to replace populations that had been wiped out. Photos of empty cities from that time, with streets that have no people despite the grand buildings, suggest a period of emptiness after a disaster. The trains then filled this void with young people who had no memory of their past. The long exposure time of old cameras can explain why crowds look blurry, but theorists ask why there are no clear figures if the cities were so busy. Maybe they weren't. The aftermath of the Reset might have left them as ghost towns until the orphans came. The shadow of the Illuminati is very present. This secretive group is said to mix Freemasonic origins with plans for global control. They are believed to have used societies like the Odd Fellows to carry out resets. The Bavarian Illuminati, started in 1776 by Adam Weishaupt, secretly joined the Masons, and their eye and pyramid symbol on the dollar bill hints at the suppression of Tartaria. Conspiracies claim they planned the orphan trains to reset the population, getting rid of Tartarian family lines while putting in place generations that would obey them. Foundling hospitals, with their old-world architecture, became centers for this. Babies were left in turning cradles and quickly taken to the trains, with their origins hidden. Why was there a sharp increase in asylums after the 1850s, which was at the same time as the mud floods? Personal stories make the mystery even deeper. Descendants of the train riders tell of broken family histories and unexplained gaps in their heritage, which suggests that their pasts were erased. One post on X shares a great-grandparent's story of being from a dugout, which implies they were pulled out after a flood. Another post connects the trains to the repopulation of Tartaria, with the children being used as pawns in the Reset. Videos analyze the incubator babies at the fairs, questioning if they were cloned using Tartarian technology. The Odd Fellows' focus on educating the fatherless is seen as a cover for darker activities. Their lodges being near train routes helped with the distribution. The similarities to the Freemasons are intriguing. Both groups stress brotherhood and charity. Yet, conspiracies accuse them of being used for elite control, using orphans to build societies that are easy to manage. Masonic symbols in buildings from the train era suggest they were overseeing the process, and their rituals are similar to Tartarian mysteries. The idea of Illuminati control fits in with the goal of resetting populations to keep power. Why did the train stop in 1929? This is linked to resets after World War I. The home children of Australia are a similar case. They were shipped from Britain to the colonies to repopulate lands after a reset. This seems to be a worldwide pattern. Orphans used as tools for a reset, societies like the Odd Fellows acting as their handlers, empty photos showing the desolation after a reset, and trains bringing in new life. Those who debunk these theories point to the stated goals of welfare, but strange things remain, like undocumented children and abusive placements. The secrecy of these societies makes people doubt them. The skeletons in the rituals of the Oddfellows hint at darker truths. The influence of Freemasons in government suggests a coordinated effort. The puzzle is fascinating. If you trace your family history, you might find links to the trains and hidden Tartarian roots. The myths about cabbages continue, with the fairs giving rise to the lore of repopulation. The hand of the Illuminati is seen in the effort to reset humanity, one child at a time. What family secrets are waiting to be discovered, connecting to lost empires? The mystery continues to unfold, with the whistles of the trains echoing forgotten cries. Imagine you are in a poorly lit online forum late at night, reading through intense arguments. One side presents old maps and building plans as undeniable evidence of a secret empire. The other side responds with academic papers and geological facts, taking the story apart piece by piece. However, neither side can completely erase the nagging feeling that maybe, just maybe, the real story is somewhere in the middle of fact and fiction. This is the heart of the Tartaria debate. It is a conflict where pseudoscience clashes with careful examination, making us balance the appeal of a huge conspiracy against the solid proof of evidence. At the same time, we wonder if school systems around the world are protecting knowledge or hiding secrets. On one side, the debunkers make a strong argument based on historical documents and the way languages have changed. They say that Tartaria was never a single, advanced empire. Instead, it was a general, old-fashioned name that European mapmakers used for the huge, mostly unexplored areas of Central Asia and Siberia. From the 13th century on, Tartary, or Tartaria, covered lands where nomadic groups like the Tatars, Mongols, and Turks lived. It stretched from the Caspian Sea to the Pacific Ocean. Maps from the 1500s to the 1800s, made by people like Giacomo Cantelli de Vignola or Giovanni Bottero, always showed it not as one civilization with amazing technology, but as a collection of khanates and steppes. It was often colored in a vague way to show that it was a mystery, not a place of power. The Russian Geographical Society has officially disproved the conspiracy. They have shared many historical maps that show Tartary as a label for areas that were under Mongol control or, later, Russian expansion. They stress that its removal from modern maps is just because geographical knowledge got better, and the name was no longer used as borders became more defined. People who are skeptical, like those on the Skeptoid podcast or in Bloomberg articles, point out that the theory started with Russian pseudoscience. Specifically, it came from Anatoly Fomenko's New Chronology from the 1970s, which drastically shortens historical timelines to challenge Western history and promote Russian nationalism. Fomenko's ideas, made popular by occult writers like Nikolai Levashov, depict Tartaria as a hidden real Russia that was ignored by the West. The Society rejects this idea as an extremist fantasy. They show how adding an extra R to Tatar made people think of Tartarus, the Greek hell, which made Europeans see the area as savage, not smart. This bias in language, along with a lack of knowledge about Asian history, created the myth. But well-documented stories from travelers like Marco Polo or Russian explorers show no proof of free energy domes or giant builders, only nomadic herders and khanates. The idea of a mud flood, which is central to the conspiracy, falls apart when looked at geologically. Supporters claim that a worldwide flood of liquefied soil in the mid-1800s buried Tartarian cities, making basements the new ground floors and leaving windows at sidewalk level. However, experts explain these buried buildings as a result of practical city planning. Streets were raised for better sanitation, like in Seattle's regrading in 1889 after fires and floods, or Chicago's raising of streets after the 1871 fire to deal with sewage problems. There is no widespread geological proof of a single, planet-wide mud event. Instead, local floods, volcanic ash, or human engineering account for the strange features. Articles in Discover magazine show how conspiracy believers misunderstand 19th century building methods. For example, they see the use of staff, a type of plaster over wood, for temporary World's Fair buildings as proof of ancient origins, ignoring archives full of photos of scaffolding and workers. Giants, another main point of the theory, don't hold up under scientific review. Reports of 9-foot skeletons from 1800s newspapers often turned out to be hoaxes or misidentified mammoth bones. The Smithsonian has made it clear that no such remains are in their collections, with any losses being due to poor preservation, not a conspiracy. Evolutionary biology confirms that the average human height has not changed drastically. Cases of gigantism, like Robert Wadlow, were very rare and not a separate race. The biblical Nephilim or Greek Titans are mythological explanations for natural wonders or fossils, not historical facts. As Wikipedia entries on pseudohistory emphasize, these claims ignore the documented history of Asia, from the conquests of the Mongol Empire to the indigenous cultures of Siberia, turning rich histories into fantasies. Graham Hancock's Ancient Apocalypse on Netflix, which believers often point to as proof, has been similarly debunked. Hancock suggests that Ice Age disasters wiped out advanced societies, connecting sites like Göbekli Tepe to lost knowledge. But archaeologists criticize him for picking and choosing data and ignoring radiocarbon dating that shows Göbekli Tepe was built 11,000 years ago by hunter-gatherers who were becoming more complex. The Society of American Archaeology called the series pseudoscience, saying it disrespects indigenous histories by giving their accomplishments to mysterious others. Claims of censorship, with Netflix getting backlash, come from scholars pushing back, not from suppression. Hancock's books sell millions of copies, so they are hardly hidden. Education systems are criticized in the conspiracy. They are accused of hiding ancient truths to keep control, teaching a timeline focused on Europe that ignores other civilizations. Believers ask why school curricula quickly go over Asian history, focusing on Greece and Rome, suggesting this is done on purpose to maintain Western superiority. Yet, debunkers argue that education changes as new evidence is found. The hiding of Tartary is because the term is no longer used, not because of any bad intentions. There are dangers in this. Pseudoscience creates distrust in institutions. As research from the SPLC warns, this can lead to extremism, where harmless theories like Tartaria turn into supremacist stories, romanticizing a pure past that was erased by impure forces. Why do old maps show such consistency if they were just fake? Mapmakers copied each other, which continued errors, like showing California as an island until surveys corrected them. The hiding in education might be an oversight, not a conspiracy. But what if curricula do favor certain histories, pushing others to the side? Hancock's series, despite its problems, makes people interested in overlooked sites, challenging established ideas. The debate continues on forums like Reddit's r/historymemes, where users make fun of Tartaria as the QAnon of architecture. Yet, some wonder about the rapid building in the 19th century, questioning if lost techniques could explain it. Bloomberg calls it a cultural unhappiness with modernism, a preference for traditional beauty. But there are dangers. Pseudoscience weakens trust, similar to anti-vax parallels, slowing down science by making people demand proof for things that are already established facts. In this battle between truth and conspiracy, debunkers provide evidence. Tartary as a geographical name, mud floods as local incidents, and giants as myths. But believers respond with strange occurrences. Similar architectural styles all over the world, suppressed patents, and gaps in education. Maybe the real danger is in becoming too polarized, where asking questions is met with dismissal, and curiosity is stopped by ridicule. As the threads are pulled apart, think about this. If Tartaria is fake, why does it have such an emotional appeal? Is it a longing for a lost sense of wonder in a world that feels disposable, or are there subtle truths in the pseudoscience, like overlooked civilizations and censored questions? Hancock's censorship through critiques shows the tension between academia's role as a gatekeeper and open exploration. Education hides things. Curricula change slowly, but online echo chambers spread myths quickly. The dangers of pseudohistory, as the ADL notes, are that it can support extremism, like Hyperborean narratives that are linked to white supremacy, romanticizing Aryan pasts erased by others. Still, the consistency of the maps is intriguing. Were they copied mistakes or a sign of a hidden unity? Why do ancient sites like Göbekli Tepe challenge timelines that education is slow to update? Is the backlash against Netflix a case of truth being censored or pseudoscience being called out? If education does hide things, what are the motives? Is it to control narratives, as Fomenko claimed for Russia, or is it just an innocent mistake? In this conflict, maybe there is a hybrid truth. Tartary was real as a region, but the myths about it show deeper desires for lost technology and a peaceful past. The dangers are real, as conspiracy theories break down facts and create division. But we should also ask, if everything has been debunked, why does it remain so popular? Is it the fault of education for hiding diverse histories, or is it a human need for mystery in ordinary worlds? The story continues, with facts fighting against fantasies, inviting us to look deeper. What if peeling back the layers reveals not a conspiracy but overlooked stories, or confirms our doubts by uncovering systemic cover-ups? Curiosity calls to us. Examine the maps, question the texts, weigh the evidence. In the light of debunking, the conspiracy seems to fade, but shadows still linger, whispering about other possibilities. The search goes on, balancing doubt with wonder, with the truth coming out of the conflict. As we close this investigation into the shadowy legacy of Tartaria, let's think about the quiet way its echoes continue in our modern world. They are not like old objects collecting dust in museums, but like living threads woven into the fabric of what is possible. They invite us to imagine a future where the lost harmony of an ancient empire could still be found again. The legacy of Tartaria, spread like stardust across the continents, shows up in small, strange things that make us question what we see every day. There are star forts that hum with unexplained electromagnetic pulses during solar flares, ancient domes where compasses spin wildly, and ruins where visitors say they have quick visions or feel unexplained warmth, as if emotional imprints are still in the stone. These are not just interesting things for tourists. They whisper of a civilization that balanced technology with the spirit, giving us hope that we too can rise above our current time of conflict and find again the unity that once fueled a worldwide golden age. The survivors of Tartaria's fall, those strong souls who came out of the mud floods and plasma storms, brought pieces of that world into ours. These pieces might be hidden in folklore, in genetic memories, or even in the subtle design of our cities. Historical stories that are often ignored as exaggerated tales speak of wanderers from the East who came to Europe and America in the early 19th century. They brought with them unusual objects, crystal shards that glow in the moonlight, maps drawn with unfamiliar star patterns, and stories of airships that danced with the northern lights. These could be the descendants, planting seeds of hope through spoken traditions that turned into myths of hidden kingdoms like Shambhala or Agartha. These are inner-earth places where Tartarian knowledge is said to live on. Modern psychics and remote viewers, in sessions recorded on fringe podcasts, say they have made contact with these echoes. They see visions of tall figures teaching the principles of free energy, warning humanity to avoid the repeating cycles of collapse that destroyed their ancestors. This cycle, as described in the Five Eras theory, shows history not as a straight line of progress, but as repeating waves. Golden ages of enlightenment crash into resets of destruction. Each time humanity struggles to recover, having less than it did before. Tartaria, the peak of the Fourth Era, grew from the pyramid builders and star architects. It achieved a perfect harmony between society and the individual, where energy flowed freely. Conflicts were solved through resonance instead of violence, but the secret entry of evil forces, whether they were the hordes of Gog and Magog or the symbolic demons of greed, caused its destruction. This is a pattern we see repeated today in environmental problems and social divisions. The hope is in breaking this cycle. By studying the legacy, we might be able to use the hidden energies of the star forts, perhaps as modern resonance devices to create clean power. We could also decode the psychic leftovers in the ruins to unlock forgotten healing frequencies. Imagine archaeologists in Siberia finding a Tartarian vault during a normal dig. Inside, they find crystals lined up with ley lines that become active during certain phases of the moon and produce a measurable amount of electricity, as has been reported in little-known journals from the 2010s. These strange occurrences suggest that the Empire's technology was not destroyed. but is just sleeping, waiting for the right minds to wake it up. Conspiracy groups are full of stories about government black sites that are experimenting with such finds. They are said to be reverse engineering free energy to power secret bases while keeping it from the public to maintain a system of scarcity. Yet, this also gives rise to hope. If whistleblowers and independent researchers can copy these devices, as seen in YouTube videos of homemade Tesla coils drawing power from the air, then we are close to getting back that legacy. We could move from our plastic fifth era to a new golden age. The psychic remnants add a personal layer of wonder. Visitors to sites like the Bosnian pyramids or the vitrified forts in Scotland report having vivid dreams after their visit, where they experience daily life in Tartaria. They see communities gathering under domes that amplified thoughts for group problem-solving and airships flying across borders without any restrictions. These are not just hallucinations. Parapsychology studies, although they are controversial, have recorded higher levels of theta brainwaves in these places, which hints at a consciousness that has been imprinted there. Hope grows from this. If we can connect with these echoes through meditation or technology like biofeedback devices, we might be able to access the plans for a sustainable way of living, avoiding the pride that destroyed past eras. Education has a key role in this recovery. Current systems, which are accused of hiding alternative histories, could change to include the lessons of Tartaria. They could teach about the cycles of rise and fall to help build resilience. Imagine school curricula that include Hancock's theories about cataclysms alongside standard timelines, encouraging students to ask questions and be creative. The danger of pseudoscience leading to misplaced trust or extremism is real. Online communities, from Reddit's Tartaria threads to Discord servers discussing mud flood evidence, already represent this hope. They are crowdsourcing analyses that challenge established ideas and suggest solutions, like community energy grids inspired by star forts. The legacy also extends to cultural items. Folk music from Siberian tribes has melodies that can put people into a trance, which might be leftovers of Tartarian sound technology. Crop circles that copy ancient geometric shapes are seen as messages from the descendants of survivors, calling for unity in a world struggling with climate change. As rising seas remind us of the fall of Atlantis, we can find hope in Tartaria's ability to adapt. Their airships symbolize mobility in a crisis, and their crystals foreshadow solar innovations. However, the way forward requires us to be careful. Reclaiming free energy could disrupt economies, leading to opposition from established powers, as seen in the suppression of patents for over-unity devices. Conspiracy warnings of a new reset are present, but hope counters this with group action. Grassroots movements are building off-grid communities and experimenting with resonance technology to heal environments damaged by industrial waste. As descendants of the survivors, our DNA may hold the keys. Genetic studies have found unexplained markers in Eurasian populations, which might be Tartarian legacies that improve intuition or resilience. Psychic explorations, like those in cases readings, suggest that the Akashic records, which contain all knowledge, are available to everyone, holding the blueprints for a harmonious future. In this mix of legacy and hope, Tartaria is not a sad story but a guiding light. Its potential to break the cycle is alive in the strange occurrences, the myths, and our own natural curiosity. By accepting the unknown, we honor the survivors and create an era where energy is free, unity is strong, and history provides light instead of limits. As the mysterious story of Tartaria comes to a close, let's focus on the strong sparks that still exist. They are not like the dying embers of a forgotten fire, but like guiding lights showing the way to a fresh start. The scattered legacy of the empire could spark a collective awakening, changing our broken present into a rich tapestry of rediscovered potential. These leftover pieces, carved into both landscapes and minds, are more than just historical oddities. They represent a plan for hope, encouraging us to break the cycles of collapse by using the same energies that once powered an enlightened time. This can turn the whispers of the past into the loud roars of tomorrow's innovations. The star forts, those geometric mysteries found all over the world from Europe to the Americas, are perfect examples of this lasting legacy. Even in their ruined state, these structures show strange signs of untapped power. Modern researchers using electromagnetic field detectors have measured unexplained energy spikes during geomagnetic storms at places like Fort Monroe in Virginia or the Citadel of Besançon in France. At these sites, the readings jump as if the angles of the fort are still channeling natural forces. Theorists believe that these are sleeping generators built by the Tartarians to pull energy from the Earth's ley lines. They might be able to be turned back on with modern technology like piezoelectric enhancements. Imagine communities converting these forts into small power grids, creating clean electricity to power local homes without using fossil fuels. This would be a direct recovery of free energy principles that have been hidden for centuries. A flicker of hope can be seen here. Experimental projects in remote areas, written about in obscure engineering journals, are trying similar geometric designs and getting small but encouraging results. This suggests we could expand this to fight climate problems, breaking our reliance on systems that depend on scarcity. Psychic remnants in the ruins add a deeply personal aspect to this legacy, where visitors to places connected to Tartaria report feelings that blur the line between different times. At the Bosnian pyramids, which are huge hills thought to be man-made structures with underground tunnels, tourists describe having strong intuitions or dream sequences after their visit. They relive community gatherings under resonant domes that encouraged empathy and new ideas. Parapsychological studies, although not mainstream, have noticed higher levels of alpha brainwaves in these places. It's as if the stones hold an imprinted consciousness from a time when society valued spiritual harmony as much as technological skill. This creates optimism. Biofeedback apps and meditation retreats at such places could unlock these echoes, teaching modern minds how to access collective wisdom for solving conflicts or having creative breakthroughs. What if therapy sessions held in ancient cathedrals, with their special acoustic chambers, used these remnants to heal divisions in society, reflecting the balanced principles of Tartaria? The hope also includes reclaiming free energy, a key part of Tartaria's supposed advancement, where atmospheric and crystal technology provided limitless power without harming the environment. Modern inventors, inspired by Tesla's suppressed designs that might have come from Tartarian knowledge, are working on devices like atmospheric electricity harvesters. These pull volts from the air during thunderstorms. Prototypes funded by crowds on platforms like Kickstarter are showing promise, generating enough power to light homes off-grid and challenging thermodynamic skeptics who call it pseudoscience. In this same spirit, underground networks of researchers share blueprints online, avoiding the patent suppressions that are blamed on corporate groups and encouraging a grassroots revolution. Imagine a world where every rooftop is like a Tartarian dome, capturing solar and etheric energies to power fair societies. This would break the cycle of resets by making power available to everyone, making sure no elite group can hoard it like before. The legacies of the survivors bring a human warmth to this vision. Oral histories from indigenous groups in Siberia tell of ancestors who walked through mud seas, carrying with them knowledge of harmonious living that influenced shamanic practices that are still alive today. Genetic studies have found unexplained markers in Eurasian populations, like higher mitochondrial diversity, which hints at ancient migrations after a catastrophe. Maybe Tartarian bloodlines improve resilience or intuition. This legacy offers hope for bioengineering. CRISPR advancements could enhance these traits, helping to raise a generation that is in tune with environmental balance, avoiding the pride that caused previous eras to fail. Community projects like eco-villages on the steppes of Mongolia, once the heartland of Tartaria, mix traditional yurt designs with modern solar crystals. They prove that sustainable models can honor the past while looking to the future. The 5 eras framework gives a philosophical foundation for this optimism. It sees our plastic 5th era as a time of transition, ready to evolve into a 6th era where we combine the lessons from golden ages of the past. By studying the geometric wisdom of the pyramid builders or the energies of the star forts, we might be able to design resilient cities that can survive resets. These could include floating habitats on rising seas inspired by Atlantean lore, or underground networks similar to Muse caverns. Educational changes could speed this up. Imagine virtual reality simulations of Tartarian life that teach empathy and innovation to young people, fighting against the supposed suppressions in current school curricula. Online academies are already pioneering this, mixing Hancock's research on cataclysms with practical energy experiments, empowering people to help break the cycle. Yet, this hope is balanced with caution. The legacy warns of infiltration, where evil forces like the symbolic hordes of Gog and Magog could reappear in digital forms, using AI to create new divisions. The dangers of conspiracy are real. The appeal of pseudoscience might distract from real threats like climate resets, but when used positively, it inspires innovation. Grassroots movements, from permaculture farms to free energy co-ops, represent this balanced approach, reclaiming the spirit of Tartaria without giving in to paranoia. Cultural revivals add life to this. Festivals at ancient sites recreate Tartarian harmonies through sound baths in cathedrals, where participants report creative breakthroughs, hinting at psychic activation. Art installations that look like crop circles, those mysterious patterns possibly from Tartarian descendants, act as public gateways to wonder, inspiring environmental activism. In Siberia, ecotourism is bringing back shamanic rituals, mixing them with technology to monitor ley lines for energy harvesting, connecting the old and the new. The ultimate hope is in unity. Tartaria's legacy teaches that societies do well when the individual and the group work together, a lesson for our divided world. By decoding the psychic whispers in the ruins, perhaps by using apps that analyze EVP recordings at forts, we might be able to encourage global conversations, turning strange occurrences into shared discoveries. What if international teams found sealed vaults that revealed blueprints for anti-gravity airships, sending humanity to the stars while healing the Earth? As the inheritors of this legacy, we are at a crossroads. We can either give in to the cycles or move forward, reclaiming free energy to power fair futures. The anomalies are still here, glowing crystals in museums, humming forts during storms. They are reminders that hope is not lost, but is just sleeping, waiting for our spark to awaken it. Sleep well among these lasting mysteries, dreaming of the dawn we might still bring back to life.